morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Arjun Kumar Kantimahanti, but to make it simple, I am known as Arjun. And I am going to talk about this CMOS to life sciences manufacturing from a fab perspective. What does it take to make something like this to work? And I think before the lunch break, if any of you guys are planning to take a short nap, this is the right time. You have 25 minutes and I'll try my best to keep you guys to sleep, okay? So, very quick overview of Silterra for those of you who do not know what is Silterra. We are basically a 200 mm or 8-inch wafer foundry. We have equipment that's capable of printing down to 90 nanometers, and we have capacity of around 40,000 wafer starts per month, and we ship approximately an equal number and around 40,000 wafers per month. We have been in this business for the last 18 years. We have a fab that's approximately 120,000 square feet, and we have all sorts of certifications that are needed to do business in the consumer space. And one of the important things that's happening within Silterra right now is we are actually transiting from the traditional CMOS technologies to more technologies. So what does that mean? If you look at this, these are all the technology platforms within Silterra. The bottom part, which I call them as the traditional technologies, are the logic, analog, RF, CMOS. So these were the technologies that we have been using for the last 17 to 18 years to produce the electronic chips that goes into consumer products that are around you. Your mobile phone, your Wi-Fi routers, your TVs, these are the technologies that are typically used. And we call them as CMOS technologies because the transistor is a CMOS transistor. However, since the last 4 years plus, we started working on new technologies which are shown on the top part of the graph. So here we are working on these technologies primarily to address the emerging markets like IoT, artificial intelligence, autonomous cars, and healthcare or life sciences. Okay. So if you look at this, we first started working on the IoT process. This is similar to CMOS technology. It's just that it's an ultra low power process. Then we started working on power. This is to basically have the ability to handle the different power requirements of these markets. But the most interesting thing, if you notice, is all these technologies plus these two technologies, it's all to do with electrical signals, right? So the domain is all electrical domain. Now in the new technology, it is photonics. Photonics is all about light and optics. So now the domain has changed completely to optics. And that's a major challenge for a manufacturing fab. Now you are asking me to forget everything about electrical and start to think about optical. Okay? Then the next one, if you move, is MEMS. MEMS is actually, it stands for micro electromechanical systems. So in this technology, the domain is mechanical. You are looking for vibrations, right? So and then if you go to the next one, which is life sciences. So in the life sciences field, what happens is that they typically use either a photonics or a MEMS element as a basic building block. However, that doesn't solve the problem, right? As you have been listening to the other speakers, you need biochemistry. So now the domain has changed to biochemistry. So you can imagine how complex it is to keep changing this domain in a manufacturing environment. All these days, since the industry came into the picture, it's always about electrical domain. The challenge we had is to only make things smaller and smaller, but it's the same transistor. Now the complete fundamentals have changed. And by the way, just to let you guys know, I actually failed my biology class. So I'm not sure I'll have my job tomorrow, but right? And now you have an engineer talking about biology, right? So that's the key challenge. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to talk about one of the success stories we had in life sciences, and it's basically producing the DNA sequencing chip that and PacBio, just now we had the talk about it. So this is actually a biophotonics chip. Okay, the basic element is photonics, but then again there's a lot of biochemistry behind it. So this is a simple way of describing the manufacturing experience. So we started working with PacBio since 2015, so that's a good 3 years. We collaborated with IMEC. Again, as I said, being a manufacturing fab, we cannot do it alone. We need someone like IMEC. And then the customer to transfer a proof of concept biophotonics project to high volume manufacturing. So this product, the proof of concept was done in IMEC, but then it was transferred to Silterra for volume manufacturing. And it's a highly complex product, okay, that requires us to build a biophotonics components on the top of already processed CMOS wafer, right. So that's almost all 3x complex. And then the chip uses a combination of photonics, it uses small channel microfluidics and in situ filters. And as I said, the partnership with IMEC was very critical for us, and along with PacBio. Okay. So what are the so the way we approached this is that we looked at the process flow. We basically broke it down, which are the steps that look like the CMOS, like what we do for bread and butter, what requires minor development and major development. So from this chart you can see 40% of the process is similar to what we do in CMOS manufacturing. But then another 35% falls in the minor development. That means we can take the CMOS recipes, we can tweak or maybe redefine the metrology, not a big issue, can be managed. But then the last 25% is where the real complexity comes. It's a complete paradigm shift. We have new materials to handle, we have new process to develop, and the most difficult part is the new metrology. As I said, the domain has changed, it's optical domain. So your metrology has to change, right? And then new concepts of manufacturing, controls and process, because this is not a one-time proof of concept. You need to make sure you can produce them day in, day out, right? So you have to, like for example, we have to develop a deep trench etch, a thick deposition, no stop layers, partial etch, and etc. Right? So after breaking them this way, we started working on them. So what are the key challenges? Some of these are technical challenges. First thing, stress matters. As I said, because the biophotonics components are built on the top of CMOS wafer, the CMOS wafer already has stress in it, and then you're building these components, so the stress simply multiplies. Okay? Just to give you a flavor, a fully processed CMOS wafer will approximately have a 5 micron thick dielectrics or metals on the top of it. After you put this biophotonics components on it, it adds another 12 micron. So that's like 2x, right? Almost all. And so we have to use some stress balancing techniques, because once you have stress on the wafer, what happens is the films you deposit, they tend to peel off. They won't stay. Or if they stay, when the wafers go to the next step, the equipment rejects it, saying that the wafer is not flat enough. So it doesn't allow you to process. So what do, right? So stress balancing techniques, we have to use that. And then, as I said, we have to implement stress and wafer bow monitoring. In the CMOS processing, stress is not an issue. I'm saying that now because I think over the years we learned how to manage it, and it's a very controlled parameter. You really don't look at it unless there's really some major problem. But here, you have to, right? And the worst thing about stress is, it is not repeatable. It will work today very well. Tomorrow you come and run the wafers, the damn thing doesn't work, right? So that was one of the biggest challenges we had. Then multi-stack dielectric films. In the CMOS world, we use single stack, simple, straightforward, you deposit the film, you're done. Here we have to stack them. And in the CMOS world, when we deposit the films, we just measure the thickness and you're done, right? Thickness, uniformity, you're done. But here, because this is a photonics based chip and the light, how it moves through the films is very important, you have to now start monitoring the spectrum of the film. Thickness is not important, spectrum is important, and then you have to do it on multi-stack film. So how do you do that, right, in volume manufacturing? So, and to achieve that, we have to establish new tool qualification procedures, because thickness monitoring doesn't help at all. And then we have to redefine defectivity. What I mean by this is that, for example, when you deposit films, sometimes you might have haze, right? Haze is like a starry haze, right? And if it's low level, in CMOS processing, it is perfectly acceptable, because it doesn't affect any of the electrical performance. But in the optical world, it will kill it, right? So we have to redefine the defectivity mechanism for that. Next one, manufacturability. As I said, the most important thing is manufacturability for us, right? So we need to, in CMOS manufacturing, the way we achieve manufacturability is we use a lot of edge top layers. That actually gives a lot of manufacturability. But here, because it's a photonics based chip, that those edge top layers might interact with the film spectrum. So in some cases, we have to just let it go and find new ways of controlling the process. And also, as I said, as you keep building these components, the wafer becomes very non-uniform, and you have to apply very innovative planarization process to make sure it's flat. Otherwise, it cannot go to the next step. The equipment will reject it. Okay. And then outgoing QA, as I said, right now, we in the CMOS world, we basically ship the wafers based on electrical testing. Here, how do we ship? You can't test anything electrically, because it's all photonics, right? And the chip is not fully manufactured, because it has to go through post-processing. So we have to redefine some of our outgoing QA, right? Then monitoring, as I said, electrical monitoring is not possible. This is not CMOS, but that's what we used to do. Now we have to come and do some physical CD versus device performance. We have to apply stringent SPC systems. We have to find alternative ways to have a in-fab monitoring. The next challenge is actually the key challenge, but I believe this is the key ingredient for making all of this work, is the mindset. Okay? You definitely need to have a change in mindset. You want to produce something in volume, you're going to have a problem with that, right? And you have to embrace change. And I personally believe this is one thing that is actually the secret ingredient. Okay? So now I'm going to switch topics. I'm going to talk about some of the technology platforms that Silterra has been working for life sciences and healthcare. The first platform we have is what's called as a PMUT. This PMUT is nothing but a piezoelectric micro machine ultrasonic transducer. It sounds too complex, right? So I'll make it very simple for you. Here's a very simple schematic. What this particular technology has, it has a thin film that vibrates when you apply a voltage, or when you apply a AC signal or whatever it is. It vibrates, and that vibration actually creates an ultrasound. Okay? That ultrasound frequency can be between 5 megahertz to 20 megahertz. So why is it interesting? Because most of the devices, medical devices, operate in that range. So if you have this technology available, you can actually make most of the medical devices portable, because now we are allowed to miniaturization, right? So this is a cross-sectional view. So this is a thin film membrane I'm talking about. It's made up of aluminum nitride, and then there is a cavity. So this is a MEMS based device, right? This is different compared to the PacBio, that is a photonics based one. This is a MEMS based. And here's a cross section view. This is a vibrating membrane, and this is the air gap. Okay? And again, as I said, the uniqueness of this device is it generates an ultrasound. So here some of the possible applications. Main thing is you can focus on making it portable probes for the ultrasonic devices, intravascular medical imaging, and quite a few wherever you need ultrasound. This is a video. I'll play it towards the end of the slide. So here's a PMUT array. these little circular things you see is one PMUT cell. So you can build as many as you want. You want 1,000,000 of them, we can produce for you in one array. And here's a top shot cross-section image, and you see this circular thing, that is the one, that is the membrane that actually oscillates or vibrates. And the uniqueness of this technology is that it is a truly monolithic single substrate, just like the PacBio solution. It is built on the top of CMOS, and it uses normal aluminum electrode connections, which is quite common in the CMOS world. And aluminum nitride is used as a piezo layer. This is the layer that converts the electrical energy into mechanical energy. And then silicon nitride is used as an elastic layer. So here's a measurement that's done by one of our partners using a laser Doppler meter. So you can see the color, the red color is where it is actually vibrating, and the frequency of this particular cell was around 5.6 megahertz. Then if you look at the video, this is from the same laser Doppler meter measurement. We recorded the video. You can see the displacement is basically moving up and down, and that's where the ultrasound is generated. Okay. And again, these are the tools that Marianne is talking about, the simulation tools, the design tools, right? This is where the difference comes from, because now you can imagine, instead of just saying that it's moving, you can have in an environment like this, it helps you to imagine how the thing is moving. Of course, this is not simulation, this is actual measurement, but it helps us with that. Next, here's some of the testing, because as I said, once it's an ultrasound, you have to, and if you're going to go into healthcare, you have to evaluate how it works in different liquids. For example, we have water here, and then ST is transmission sensitivity. This is kilopascals per volt. This is in water. This is FC70. FC70 is actually a chemical that replicates human tissue, because every time we want to test, I cannot keep taking the tissues from Silterra employees, right? So it's very common in the biomedical industry that they use this liquid for all the lab tests to see how it works when it penetrates through human tissue, right? And these are very important parameters for the designers. So we actually feed back this to the designers so they can, do the complete product. So if you actually look at this platform, we are developing it in such a way. First thing, we have almost all set up the environment to do simulation, okay? Because this whole cycle of developing something and producing will take an year, right? So you don't want to do something and then realize, whoops, we wasted our effort. So what you can do is that you can actually use a simulation environment. You have an idea, you have a proof of concept, and you want to use a PMUT device, you can use the simulation to see how it works. The good thing about this simulation is that it actually allows you to simulate in different environments. For example, if you're building an ultrasound medical device, it's very common for those devices to have ultrasound oil in them. And then when you go for the scan, they apply ultrasound gel on you. So you need to know how this ultrasound penetrates through these different layers, through the ultrasound oil, then through the ultrasound gel, and then through the human tissue. So all this, you can actually use the simulation environment to see how the signal is modulating. And then if you want to make corrections to your design, you can do it right away, right? Typically, this cycle takes around 3 months time frame. You play around, you let the engineers play around. And then after that, you can tape out, your product, and we'll manufacture it for you. Probably it will take another couple of months to do this. And then we can test it at the cell level. We can test at the individual device and say whether, this is working fine. We can check the frequency, which is the most important one. And now what we are doing right now is we are moving to the next level. We are actually trying to build a demo board. Now I'm not trying to standardize things. I know things are not standardized here. We are working with our partner IMEC, and we are trying to build a board so that if a customer has a proof of concept, he goes through this whole cycle, and then we build this development board, he should be able to go take it, hook it up, and see the image, for example, right? So if we can do something like this is work in progress, then that will be really fantastic. It bridges the gap between the fab and the end product, because you have the demo board, the guy should be able to go hook it up to his system and see whether he is able to see the image or not. Right? So again, for us, the partnership with IMEC is very critical for this. So I took Paru for lunch yesterday. He said no problem, he'll get it done. Okay, so that's one platform. Talk about the second platform, which is another innovative platform. We call it silicon nanowires for life sciences. So this is a bunch of silicon nanowires, okay, and this is a cross section view. You can see this little inverted triangle, that is a silicon nanowire, okay, and this is one chip that one of our customers has designed, the CMOS plus the silicon nanowire. So what's so great about the silicon nanowire? A silicon nanowire is an excellent photodetector, okay. So now if you take these photodetecting capabilities and if you combine it with a fluorescence based methodology, you can actually form a biosensor, okay. So that's the interest in silicon nanowire. Again, it is going to be a photonics based solution, but in this case you are going to use the silicon nanowire as a photodetector. And then you can add additional microfluidic modules for channeling. And the good thing is that the silicon nanowire is fabricated as the same level as CMOS. So you don't need two chip solution, it's just a one chip, okay. And then the device is truly monolithic, it sits next to the CMOS. And then this one we are partnering with Korea Electronics Institute. I think the speaker after me, she is going to talk about this in detail. She is the expert, I am just the spokesman. Okay. And this next slide, my apologies, I copied it from her. I need to put the source, I will get that done. But this is the application. So what you do is that after you form the biosensor using the silicon nanowire as a photodetector, you can actually use it to detect biomarkers, okay. And then these biomarkers can be associated with various diseases like dengue, Zika or cancer, myocardial infarction. So you need to identify the biomarker, right. And then also it's possible to use for DNA sequencing, acute toxicity testing and other small molecule detection and some of the other medical applications. Again, I let her talk, she is the expert on this, okay. So one more important thing is, one of the things we learned in this life sciences is, in CMOS technology, if you have a technology platform, we will definitely run 50 to 100 products on one single technology. It's not a big deal. Once you have the technology qualified, the guys can keep designing into it. But when it comes to life sciences, one platform, one device. And that's what we are now getting used to. Life is difficult, but yeah, we're getting used to it. So let me quote you an example. For example, one of the life sciences guys might come in and say he's going to use the photonics element, but he wants to use the IoT platform for processing or for connectivity, right? Or in that case, you have to now put both of them together to build a product for them. Or in another case, another customer might come and say, I'm going to use MEMS, but I need a high voltage to move the element, 20 to 40 volts, and the guy might decide to use a HV voltage or a power or BCD. Then you have to do that, right? And so we are used to it to do this. And here are some of the examples. Custom integration projects, we used an integrated MEMS surface acoustic device that Dr. Laxton was talking, that can be used as a biosensor. This is a single chip solution. This is work in progress. We are trying to work with one of the US agencies to build an AFM tip. This is a MEMS and photonics device together. And then this is a deep trench silicon. It's like 40 microns deep, you can see from the cross section. This is very good for microfluidic devices and drug dispensation. This is a very good capability, okay. So, key takeaway, Silterra has a proven track record of turning proof of concept projects into mass production. Silterra continues to bring together the best practices of CMOS processing into more technologies. Pushing new boundaries and allowing scalability is the core strength of Silterra. Semiconductors, I think this is the most key important message. Semiconductors and life science convergence promises further innovation on a large scale. There's a huge opportunity for all of us, both from a business standpoint of view and from an innovation standpoint of view. And our track record will allow quick transition from proof of concept to large volume for our customers and partners. And thanks to our partners like IMEC and KTI, that we can now offer the infrastructure that is needed to validate your proof of concept. And you have seen that in the biophotonics chip. We have done it once, and now we are ready to do it many more times. Okay, so that's the end of my presentation.